Absolutely. Here's Section I, First Contact, written with a minimum of 700 words, setting the stage for the full HFY, Humanity, Fuck Yeah, story. Hashtag Section I, First Contact. They said it would be a moment of triumph. For decades, humanity had reached farther into the void, expanding its presence beyond the cradle of Earth. Colonies bloomed on Mars and Europa. Dyson swarms began to glint like scattered diamonds around Sol. Artificial intelligences mapped star charts once thought impossible. The stars had become attainable, not in a distant future, but now. When the anomaly was discovered near the star Gliese 514, it wasn't met with fear, but awe. The object, massive and symmetrical, orbited the red dwarf with unnatural precision. Its geometry defied natural formation, angled planes and hexagonal ridges extending for hundreds of kilometers. There was no doubt. It was alien. The world reacted in unison. For the first time in human history, borders, faiths, and old grudges dissolved into a single focus. Earth stood as one under the banner of curiosity and a bit of caution. A task force was assembled, comprised of the best scientists, engineers, diplomats, and tacticians Earth could offer. They called it the Unity Fleet. Leading the fleet was Commander Alara Singh, a decorated officer from the Lunar Strategic Corps. She had seen more than most, commanded in orbital skirmishes, and negotiated fragile peace treaties between off-world colonies. But this was history. And despite all her experience, she felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. She stood on the command deck of the flagship Odyssey, eyes locked on the viewport as the alien construct came into full view. It was beautiful in its precision, black like obsidian, studded with pulsing blue lights in fractal arrangements. A silence fell over the crew. "Begin full spectrum scans," she ordered. "Visual, electromagnetic, gravitational, everything. Let's figure out what this thing is." Her second-in-command, Captain Raul Mendoza, gave a tight nod. "No activity detected yet. It's just there." "Maybe it's dormant," offered Dr. Sato, the chief xenolinguist. "Or maybe it's been waiting." The last part sent a chill down Alara's spine. Within hours, the structure responded. A burst of energy emanated from the construct, non-lethal but focused. It struck one of the survey drones, which immediately went dark. A second pulse followed, more intense, scanning the Odyssey from bow to stern. "Shields are holding," Mendoza said, "but that was no random emission. It's looking at us." "Do not return fire," Alara said. "This could still be a defensive posture. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt." A signal arrived moments later, a complex waveform unlike anything seen before. Dozens of AI linguistic subroutines got to work decoding it. Patterns emerged. Repeating structures. Rhythmic pulses. Someone in the comms team whispered, "It's trying to talk." The message was a riddle of mathematics, philosophy, and coded history. It referenced pi, prime numbers, even elements from the periodic table. But it also referenced events, some chillingly familiar. Intercepted human transmissions, radio echoes from Earth's early spacefaring years, news broadcasts of wars and calamities. They had been watching. Dr. Sato paled as he translated the final sequence. "We are the Watchers. You are known. You are analyzed." The assumption on Earth had always been that alien contact would begin with innocence, two species meeting in peace, eager to learn. But this wasn't a first meeting. It was a follow-up. The Unity Fleet prepared a carefully composed reply, an offering of peace, of shared knowledge and openness. A satellite transmitted it toward the structure. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Then everything changed. Without warning, a powerful beam of focused energy lanced out from the structure, striking the science vessel Galileo. It didn't explode. It simply stopped. Engines offline. Life support gone. Entire systems rendered inert in milliseconds. "Casualty report?" Alara asked, breath caught in her throat. Mendoza's voice was grim. "Minimal loss. Emergency systems kicked in. They're adrift but alive." "We're being tested," said Dr. Sato quietly. That wasn't an attack. It was a simulation. A response to our signal. They're judging us. The diplomatic team wanted to send another message, clarify the misunderstanding. But Alara held up a hand. She stared out at the structure again, now eerily still. Something's not right, she muttered. They didn't act surprised to see us. Another signal came through. This one was an alien. It was unmistakably human. Fragments of audio logs, stress calls, and emergency pings. Some dating back over 30 years. Names of ships long thought lost. Vanguard, Erebus, Starseeker. They hadn't vanished into black holes or meteor storms. They'd come here and never returned. Sato's voice cracked. These are their final transmissions. They never reached us. They were intercepted, buried. These aliens, they've been collecting them. Alara's mind reeled. All of it, the scanning, the signals, the silence. It wasn't about introduction. It was observation, dissection. The mission wasn't a discovery. It was a mistake. She stared at the looming construct. We thought this was first contact. A pause. Cold realization. But they already knew us. We thought we were the ones reaching out. We thought wrong. Let me know when you're ready for Section 2, The Archives of the Dead, and I'll continue the story. Absolutely. Here's Section 2, The Archives of the Dead, with a minimum of 700 words, continuing the HFY storyline from Section 1. Hashtag Section 2, The Archives of the Dead. The boarding shuttle's hull shivered as it entered the atmosphere of the alien construct. Not an atmosphere in the traditional sense. There was no air, no wind, only the residual charge of ancient energy fields brushing against the ship's fuselage like static. The sleek black surface of the megastructure loomed beneath them, its scale impossible to comprehend, stretching across the horizon in every direction. Commander Alara Singh sat in the lead seat, fingers wrapped tightly around her harness. Around her were 6 hand-picked specialists, 2 Marines, a systems engineer, a linguist, a medtech, and Dr. Sato, the xenolinguist who had first broken the alien code. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered one of the Marines, Corporal Lennox, checking his plasma rifle for the 5th time. "Try to keep the guns holstered unless we're in actual danger," Alara said calmly. "We're not here to fight. We're here to understand." The shuttle touched down on a platform that extended itself just moments before landing, responding to their trajectory as though it had been waiting. As the rear ramp lowered, a deep, resonant hum vibrated through their boots. Lights flickered on, illuminating a narrow corridor leading into the heart of the structure. "Motion sensors are reading ahead of us," said Engineer Talia Green, glancing at her wrist pad. "Something's guiding us." They entered single file, weapons low but ready. The interior was like stepping into a cathedral built by minds utterly unlike their own. Geometric symmetry dominated everything. No signs of life, no natural materials, just polished obsidian walls that bent light in unnatural ways, etched with glowing filigree that pulsed in slow waves. They came to a chamber that could only be described as a vault. Floating in suspension were objects, countless of them, hanging in weightless stasis within hexagonal alcoves. Weapons, uniforms, fragments of ships, helmets, bones. Some were clearly alien in origin, others unmistakably human. A scorched earth fleet insignia caught Alara's eye. She drifted toward it, throat tightening. "That's from the Starseeker," whispered Sato. "It vanished 32 years ago. No wreckage ever found." Green tapped into a nearby console. It flickered to life, showing holographic logs. With every press of a button, the past unraveled, grainy footage from now-lost vessels, intercepted communications, biometric data, autopsy reports. "They dissected us," said Dr. Sato, voice shaking. "Studied. Cataloged. They've been monitoring humanity since our earliest space missions. Probably even before that." Alara stepped back, stunned. "Why hide it? Why collect us like artifacts?" "Because they're afraid," Sato said, eyes scanning a translated glyph hovering in the air. "They saw what we are, what we could become. Not just our wars, but our innovation. Our rapid evolution. Our refusal to die. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of that realization pressing down like a gravity well. In the center of the room was a larger display, an interface unlike the others. Alara approached and placed her hand over it. The air shimmered, and a projection activated, a translucent alien figure, tall and thin, with bioluminescent veins and 6 luminous eyes. It spoke, calm, measured, ancient. This species is anomalous, adaptive, relentless, resistant to extinction, possesses potential for Type 2 ascension within less than 3 galactic cycles. Sato's eyes widened. They're talking about us. Behavioral data indicates aggressive colonization patterns. Prioritizes technological progression over ecological balance. Capable of rapid self-directed evolution. Refusal to remain confined to point of origin. High existential risk. Existential risk? Lennox scoffed. To who? Sato didn't answer. The alien voice continued, its tone clinical, devoid of emotion. Conclusion: containment protocols initiated. Long-term surveillance required. Early intervention preferable to direct engagement. If progression continues, enact Directive Zeta 9. Prevent ascension. Prevent contamination of galactic equilibrium. Directive Zeta 9. The same directive that likely disabled the Galileo and killed the missing crews. The aliens weren't invaders. They were guardians of a cosmic order, and humanity was the wild card. They think we're dangerous, Alara said, stunned. They didn't come to learn from us, they came to lock us away. Green's voice crackled through the comms. Commander, I just accessed something deeper in the core network. A data log encrypted, but I cracked part of it. There's a message, written by one of their leaders. Alara nodded. Play it. A female-sounding alien voice spoke, translated into English via Sato's AI filters. We observed them as we did all rising species. But they were different. Fire within their eyes. Determination that did not yield. Pain shaped them but never broke them. In the blood of their wars, they found unity. In the silence of death, they found meaning. The voice paused. We feared what they might become. Not because they were evil, but because they were us before we fell. Alara's breath caught. Wait, before we fell? Sato, are you saying these aliens aren't gods or overseers? They're survivors. He nodded slowly. They once rose like us. Maybe too fast. Maybe they did exactly what they fear will do. And now they've made it their purpose to stop anyone else from repeating their mistakes. The vault darkened, and a final signal pulsed through the structure. It wasn't just data. It was targeting information. A transmission relayed through quantum channels, destination, Earth. Commander, Green said urgently. It's a weapons lock. The entire structure is charging. It's going to fire. How long do we have? Hours. Maybe less. Alara turned to the others, eyes cold, mind racing. They came for answers. They found graves. They came to speak. Now they would have to fight. They judged us too soon, she said, and with steel in her voice. They were right about one thing. We don't break. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3. We strike back, and I'll carry the momentum forward. Absolutely. Here's Section 3. We strike back, with a minimum of 700 words, continuing the high-stakes momentum of the HFY story. Hashtag Section 3. We strike back. The moment the Unity fleet received the transmission, Earth erupted into chaos. Across the Sol system, every major news network broadcast the same breaking story. The Gliese construct was powering a weapon of unknown scale, one aimed directly at Earth. There was no ambiguity, no time left for diplomacy. The images pulled from the vault, the intercepted transmissions, the relics of fallen ships, it all painted a clear picture. Humanity wasn't encountering its first alien species. It was facing its first extinction event. On board the Odyssey, Commander Alara Singh paced the command deck, eyes fixed on the live telemetry. The alien structure's energy readings were spiking. A countdown had begun, even if the clock wasn't visible. The moment it finished charging, Earth would be erased like a corrupted file. "We have 38 hours, give or take," said Chief Engineer Green over the comms. "And that's if their power cycle is linear. Could be less." "We can't destroy the entire structure from the outside," Captain Mendoza added grimly. "Our fleet doesn't have the firepower." Alara stood still, calculating. She was a soldier, not a gambler, but this mission had left no room for traditional rules of engagement. Their diplomatic channels were exhausted. Their exploratory mission had become a war footing. And worst of all, Earth had no warning systems in place to defend against an interstellar attack. This wasn't just about the fleet anymore, it was about survival. "We don't need to destroy it," she said. "We need to make it stop." That's when Kaito Vega stepped forward. A soft-spoken tactician and cyber warfare specialist, Vega had a reputation for unorthodox brilliance. "I've been analyzing the control systems," he said, pulling up a rotating schematic of the alien construct. "There's a central node beneath the vault, deep inside the structure. If we can breach that core and upload a recursive logic virus, we could disrupt the targeting protocols." Green raised an eyebrow. "Disrupt as in stop the weapon?" "Disrupt as in confuse it so badly it reboots every system, forgets its target, and has to start from scratch. It won't save us forever, but it might buy us enough time." Alara nodded slowly. "Then we make that our plan." ##### The strike team. Preparations began immediately. A multi-pronged operation. The Odyssey and remaining fleet ships would initiate a direct assault, a diversion to draw the construct's defenses. Meanwhile, a smaller infiltration team, led by Alara herself, would make a second drop onto the surface and dive deep into the core. They only had one shot. The fleet moved into position, dozens of ships flanking the construct. Earth's hastily armed satellites began transmitting jamming signals and decoy data, hoping to confuse the alien targeting systems. All available combat AI were uploaded into warframes and drones, prepping for close-quarters sabotage. Alara stood with her strike team aboard the stealth drop shuttle, armored and armed. Her eyes swept over the crew. Lennox, still cracking jokes even in a suicide mission. Green, carrying more code than ammo. Vega, calm but unreadable. And Sato, carrying a translated neural interface they'd salvaged from the vault, hoping to communicate with the construct's core, or at least stall it. "Final checks," Alara said, snapping her helmet on. "We land, we move fast, and we don't stop until that core's offline. No heroes. Just get it done." As the shuttle launched, the battle in orbit exploded into chaos. Alien defense systems activated, beams of hard light, anti-ship drones, gravitational anomalies pulling ships out of formation. The Odyssey took a glancing hit that tore through its port side. The Artemis was lost in the first volley, but her sacrifice opened a breach in the construct's outer defense field. Alara's shuttle slipped through. ##### inside the beast. The interior of the construct was no longer dormant. It pulsed with activity, reactive shielding, shifting architecture, autonomous drones emerging like antibodies. The team fought through narrow corridors, ducking under kinetic blasts and overcharging energy fields. At one junction, Green set a feedback loop that shut down an entire defense grid with a triumphant grin. "Remind me to never get on your bad side," Lennox muttered. They reached the central chamber, a vast sphere floating in zero-G, lit by a suspended data lattice that formed a glowing helix. In its center was a crystalline structure, humming with energy. The core. Vega moved fast, connecting the human neural uplink to a nodal interface. Data streamed past faster than any of them could track. Foreign languages, star charts, even emotional matrices, like echoes of thoughts left behind by ancient minds. Then Sato gasped. "They've sent warnings to other constructs," he said. "There are more out there." This one was just the first to wake up. Alara's blood ran cold. She stepped forward. "Can you stop it?" Vega nodded. "I can confuse it. But if we want to really stop it, we need to give it something it's never processed before." Sato looked up. "Hope." He typed quickly, feeding the construct memories, footage of Earth's unity after disasters, moments of compassion, breakthroughs in medicine, alliances once thought impossible. He laced it with encoded linguistic cues of humility and resilience. A message not of surrender, but of identity. Alara watched the lattice flicker, change. The weapon sequence slowed. And then stopped. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the cost of survival. Outside, the construct began to tremble. Internal systems clashed with one another. Data contradicting purpose. Empathy conflicting with programming. Vega triggered the final override, a cascade that would short the weapon permanently, but also trigger a core meltdown. Everyone out. Alara yelled. They sprinted back to the shuttle as the construct groaned and cracked apart from the inside. The fleet began retreating, dragging what wounded they could. The Odyssey intercepted their shuttle just as the structure collapsed in on itself in a spectacular silent implosion. A cheer erupted across the fleet. But the moment was short-lived. Green turned to Alara, face pale. The data didn't just stop at Earth. There are dozens more of these things, all across the stars. This one was just the first gatekeeper. Alara stared at the wreckage below. We stopped a weapon, she said quietly. But the war just started. Ready for Section 4. Humanity rises? I can keep the momentum going and bring the full story to a powerful close. Absolutely. Here's Section 4. Humanity Rises, the final chapter of your HFY epic, written with a minimum of 700 words. This section wraps up the arc, highlights humanity's evolution, and sets the stage for future conflict and hope. Hashtag Section 4. Humanity Rises. In the days following the collapse of the Gliese 514 construct, Earth stood on the edge of two futures. One was a future of fear, knowing the stars were not empty and that powerful civilizations watched with cautious, perhaps hostile, intent. The other was a future of purpose, of preparation, of unity, of rising to meet the unknown not with submission, but with strength. The Unity fleet returned to soul bruised but alive. Every surviving ship was hailed as a symbol. The Odyssey, still bearing scars from the orbital engagement, was met with silence and reverence as it entered Earth orbit. From every corner of the planet, millions watched and listened as Commander Alara Singh stepped forward. Her broadcast was short, but it echoed across history. We believed we were alone. Then we believed we were not. We were wrong both times. They knew us long before we knew them. They watched, measured,
judged.
And when we reached for the stars, they tried to stop us. But we are not a mistake to be corrected. We are the storm they feared. And we're just getting started. In the weeks that followed, Earth transformed. The political divisions that had once fragmented humanity began to fade. There were still arguments, still differences, but now they were overshadowed by something bigger. A truth none could deny. Earth was not the apex of existence. It was simply one among many. And those many might not all welcome humanity's rise. A new organization was formed, the Terran Accord, an alliance of all spacefaring nations and colonies. It was no longer enough to explore the stars. Now they had to defend themselves in them. The Accord's first act was the commissioning of the Aegis Initiative, a fleet not of exploration, but of protection. Commanders like Alara Singh were promoted to strategic leadership positions. Scientists like Dr. Sato and Kaito Vega spearheaded new divisions focused on alien linguistics, xenopsychology, and quantum intelligence. Even the battle-worn Marines like Lennox found themselves training the next generation of soldiers, not just for planetary war, but for interstellar survival. But perhaps the most important discovery was buried in the data Vega recovered during the core breach. Coordinates. Thousands of them, each linked to a similar construct scattered across the galaxy. Not all were active. Some seemed abandoned. Others were in orbit around young, primitive planets. A few were in full communication with one another. And at least 3 were moving mobile constructs, enormous and ancient, their purpose unknown. And Earth was on the list. Not as a target, as an anomaly. In one recovered file, a single phrase repeated in several alien dialects. Underscore. The exception must be corrected. Underscore. Sato believed that Earth's survival had thrown off some kind of galactic protocol. The recursive virus Vega uploaded into the Gliese construct hadn't just stopped the weapon, it had disrupted a decision system millions of years old. The data cascade triggered by their final message, humanity's history of resilience, sacrifice, and evolution, had broken the machine's predictive logic. For the first time, a construct had failed to carry out a directive. And that failure had been seen. #, the first new contact. 6 months later, the signal came. Not from Earth. Not from another construct. From deep space. Unfamiliar, complex, and yet unmistakably not hostile. A probe sent toward the edge of human-explored territory intercepted a transmission. Audio and visual. Grainy but intelligent. It was not from the Watchers. It was from something else. Something that had also once been judged. Also once locked away. They called themselves the Myri. And they wanted to speak to humanity, not as subjects to be studied, but as allies. Their message was simple. You are not alone in your resistance. We too remember the chains of the Watchers. You broke what we could not. If you wish to stand, truly stand, we will stand with you. Humanity was no longer crawling into the stars. It was walking upright and defiant. #, the dawn of a new legacy. Years passed. The Aegis fleet doubled, then tripled in size. Earth's orbit became a constellation of shipyards, defense rings, and deep space scanning arrays. Colonies on Mars and Titan were reinforced, expanded, and turned into forward operating bases. Humanity didn't hide from the stars. It built cities beneath them. Children grew up learning about the Gliese construct not as a myth, but as the beginning. The first punch in a war of philosophies, order through suppression versus growth through chaos. Humanity wasn't just surviving anymore. It was thriving. Alara Singh stood one final time on the bridge of a ship, not the Odyssey, but a new class of vessel altogether. Sleeker. Stronger. Born not from fear, but from resolve. On its hull, etched in titanium, were 3 words. We thought wrong. She turned to her new crew, young and untested. This isn't just about us anymore, she said. It never was. This is about what comes next for all of us who were underestimated. A light blinked on the console. Another signal. Another anomaly. Another unknown. She smiled. Let's go show them what wrong really looks like. And with that, humanity rose, not as prey or problem, but as contenders in a universe that finally knew. We're here. We are not afraid. And we never will be again. Let me know if you'd like this compiled into a single document or formatted for publishing. This full 2,800-word HFY story is ready to be legendary.